The natural attraction for me in New Orleans was it was in-your-face living, which I had grown accustomed to after 17 years in Israel. And I also like the diversity, which is rich in cultures and racial and educational and every form of diversity that exists. That was something that I found very attractive about New Orleans. I began working in a charter school and found that our systems were really abusing and neglecting our children. I began founding and establishing a nonprofit organization that's known today as Turning Point Partners. And the organization has been working in restorative justice, community building, and strength-based education. So up until Katrina, we had been working in the communities, in the public schools, working with universities, in the court, and in juvenile detention centers, trying to influence systems away from a punitive model, a shame-based model, to quit locking the kids up and trying to look for other solutions. Yeah, well, I'm back in my neighborhood 3 months later, and the place looks like a war zone. I've lived in war zone areas, and it didn't look any better or worse than this. Certainly the people in the cars we're seeing are either military or construction. I don't really see families or people, dogs, cats. It's pretty dead, pretty deserted, pretty grim. Here we go. It smells pretty bad in here. This was once a beautiful place. I just found out this week that I'm in what they call the A5 flood zone, which is a pretty serious one. And it's below that 100-year flood plan, which means they're going to require that I raise my house up in order to get insurance again. They're talking about anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000 just to raise the foundation of my house before I even start building upon it. When I bought this house, my real estate man told me, well, nobody ever loses a house in a flood, so just buy yourself enough to cover your mortgage and, you know, that'll be good enough. And of course, that's what I did. I lost my down payment. I lost my equity. You know, at my age, to have to start all over again with no job. I mean, a bank's going to lend me money to buy a new house here or anywhere else without a job, without equity, I mean, without a down payment. Even if this place could be gutted and rebuilt, even at low income, I mean, can I build without knowing that the levees are going to be fixed? And can I build again without knowing what the next hurricane's going to look like? Do I know I'm even going to be able to get insurance if I wanted to, if I could rebuild? I mean, these are all major questions that I have to think about even before I could even begin to think about coming back and being here. Trauma is going through a situation that is not expected, that is painful, that it has to do with loss, and it's not something that as a result of your own decisions or your own efforts. It's kind of a victimization. The first stages of it, though, is kind of a denial. You know, that it's not really happening to me, or it's not as bad as it is. It can be anything from sleeplessness, nightmares, flashbacks, what seems like psychotic episodes, lack of appetite, overeating, certainly grief, depression. Trauma occurs and keeps reoccurring, and there's re-traumatization. I mean, every time I come back here, I get re-traumatized. The way that we're hoping to train people into trauma intervention would be how to create a safe space where people could come and talk together, where people could come and, with other people who have compassion and understanding, and be able to tell their story, because that's one of the major beginning points of healing from trauma, is to have someone understand, to have someone just be with them. And we're going to offer simple exercises. We'll probably have a manual, just simple things that people who want to continue to hold these, what we're calling circles of hope. If you want to be a facilitator of circles of hope, it would give you exercises, it would give you guidelines, it would give you some listening skills, and you would be assigned a mentor, someone who would help you to do it until you felt comfortable to do it yourself, in addition to just the training. Oh, here it is. This is what I'm looking for. What I've done is I'm picking up little momentums from my house, and I'm going to put them together in a piece of art, kind of my memorial to my house that's now gone. And this was something that I had made, and I remembered seeing it. When I was in Israel, I was a silk artist, and this is one of the relics of that time. I'd always been an artist. It was kind of the part that I did of taking care of myself and the kinds of work that I chose to do. This is going to be a lot easier. So when I moved back to this country, I got back into doing ceramics, which I had done as a young woman. And over the years, I'd managed to build up a studio, which was a real fun thing for me. I had taken an apartment that I had built back here for my son to live in, and when he left, I turned it into a studio. That's where we're going here. I had a wheel here, and I had tables here, and I had this is where I mix my glazes together, and you can see some of my forms in here, the plaster forms that have all been ruined and rotten. I'd finally gotten a kiln, which was my last major expense. 400,000 of us aren't in the city anymore. We're in Memphis and Atlanta and Dallas and Houston and Sacramento and small towns in Idaho and small towns in Georgia, and we're just all over the place. Some are staying in rental places that they're being given. Those are the lucky ones. Many of us are still in homes of families and friends and strangers because they don't have any place to go. I was sitting over in the housing a couple of weeks ago trying to make some progress on my own housing. As I was sitting there, the receptionist took a telephone call, and I heard her talking about these people who were in their car and they were homeless, a family, a mother, a father, and 2 children. And she got off the phone, and of course I was emotionally touched by it, and I said, what's happening? And she said, well, every day, all day long, I still get calls from homeless people. Can we help them? We have a place for them to stay. She says, when I go home at night, all I can do is go to bed. I'm so depressed and sad. Yeah, that concept, that idea that, people have gone away and now they have a better life. My goodness. I don't know who those people have been talking to that they come up with that idea. I mean, I was at a town meeting in Memphis last week with Mayor Nagin, and there were maybe 500 or 600 of us there. And again, it was professional people and people who take the jobs in quick foods and everything in between. And all these people were just saying, how do we get home? How do we get home? We have no way. We don't have jobs. We don't have homes. We don't have ways of doing it. So somebody's got to help us. Many of my friends and many people I don't know were just told on December 1st, you got to be out of the hotels. And it's up to you to find a place to stay, but you just got to be out. But the ones who didn't have some of the connections and some of the social skills, I mean, there were people that had never left 2 blocks away from their house. All of a sudden found themselves in a city or a small town or with the resources that they didn't know how to get to, or filling out forms that they didn't know how to do, or certainly not getting on internets and telephone calls that you have to wait hours and hours. This is a disaster that's hit everybody, whether you were wealthy or whether you were living in a project. Everybody was no respecters of people. Every decision is so based on everybody else's policies and decisions they're making. It's a sense of powerlessness too. And that's part of trauma too, is that sense of powerlessness. As far as housing or place to be, I mean, I don't know where to be, and I don't know where home is, but I do plan to work with my community. I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done in the whole realm of trauma. And people who've been doing this for a lot more years than I have are saying a minimum of 5 years of trauma intervention that needs to be done with the Gulf Coast victims. That this is not something that's going to go away with 3 visits to a psychologist or, having a new home. But the kinds of trauma that people have been through are things that we're going to have to be dealing with. So the question is, can we take a look at what has happened? Can we heal our losses, both of life, of property, of community. Not just kind of skim over those things, but really deal with those and then recreate ourselves in ways that we've always been able to. Will we have the opportunity? Will we have the resources? Will we have the time? Will we have the people that have been here, all kinds of people, to do that? You see this little plant over here? It's kind of funny. I've had that plant since I arrived in New Orleans. And it's been through everything and just keeps surviving. Now, this was underwater for 10 weeks, and then it was in the house for 3 months, never getting any water. And it's the only thing that just remains alive in the whole area. I guess that plant's a little bit like some of us in New Orleans, you know. Take a licking and keep on ticking.